we're not ready to play. If we have to play tomorrow, we're not ready yet, but we will be ready. It's going to be a process for us. They recognize and they are aware of what they've done the last 2 years. Cumulatively, it's been 500, and that's not good enough. And so there is a desire to want to change that. And so there is that want to.
Did any of the LSU guys from the Chiefs talk to you about LSU, Tyrann or Darryl or Clyde?
Yeah.
The advice they give you?
I'm going to tell you what, this is, of any place I've been, this is the most passionate former players I've ever seen, okay? Whether it was Clyde, whether it was T5, I mean, those guys love this university, love this state, and want to do anything they can to help it be successful. And that's pretty neat. It's neat to be a part of.
Oh, welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And hey, flying solo once again. But, I almost didn't even have his show this day because there was just not a whole lot of SEC action going around. But the LSU coaching staff, for the first time in 3 damn months since they got on campus, got to the podium and had some words to share. So I figured we got to make the most out of all this content we can in the offseason. So we're going to jump to this LSU coaching staff, the defensive coaching staff. They went here on Wednesday. The offensive staff is going to go on Thursday. We'll be back on Friday's show with the offensive staff, as well as I got a great guest lined up to finish the week strong. But we got a couple clips here and something we hit on a previous episode. Wanted to give a little update here. I know it was a little more for the storylines than anything, but we kind of played around with the idea of Dan Mullen coming back to the SEC potentially as Kentucky's offensive coordinator. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening, according to a really good podcast. If some inside baseball media type deal, but it's one I listen to called the Marshawn and Oran podcast. They cover sports media, and according to their latest show, Dan Mullen being targeted by ESPN, the SEC network. So look for Dan Mullen. These guys are rock solid. They're the best in the business when it comes to sports media. So if they say it, I take it as gospel. Sounds, based on what they're saying, Dan Mullen's going to be a college football analyst, as strange as that sounds. I know we've seen him a little bit doing that with the SEC championship game. And so, hey, don't be surprised if Dan Mullen's on your tube. Not going to be in Lexington as the new offensive coordinator. Just wanted to make that little note. And one other thing before we get to LSU. I'm sad I asleep at the wheel here when this debuted a couple of days ago. I was not able to capture it, but apparently a video has come out from Nick Saban. And I don't even think it was a new video. I think it's about a month old, but it just came out the other day. There was two, actually. One about him talking about the lack of leadership and how that got Henry Ruggs in trouble. Obviously, we know the story. Automobile crash and people died, and Ruggs got cut by the Raiders. There was a clip around that. That's been taken off the internet by the Alabama Coaches Association. So good luck finding that if you missed it. We shared it on Twitter. It's been taken down Twitter, taken off YouTube. But the one I really wanted to share, and unfortunately also been taken down, won't be able to share it, but I got the comments here. Nick Saban comments on retirement, which is, I know, something the rest of the 13 SEC fan bases and soon to be 15 when Texas and Oklahoma come in the league and get their ass hammered by Alabama on an annual basis. When is this guy going to retire? What's he, damn near 80 years old at this point? Nick Saban, his comments here, and again, I'm just reading this transcript because the video's been scrubbed off the internet. They can't scrub me talking about it off the internet, but here's what Nick Saban says. Everybody asks me when I want to retire. Retire from what? I'm going to jump into an empty abyss height of what I'm going to do. Had to throw in the height there. Because the very challenges that I talk about and the things in our profession that concern me, for you and for me both, in your game and our game, that's what keeps me going. That's why I get up every day. That's why I can't sleep at night sometimes. So why would you quit doing that? I haven't figured that one out yet. So, hey, those are his words, not mine, even though I was reading them to you there. But based on those comments from Nick Saban, we can expect him to be around for quite a while and just hammering everybody here in the SEC. Of course, outside of Georgia and Texas A&M, they got him, but this may be another season of Alabama on the revenge tour with all they got coming back. So comments like this make certainly going to bring a smile to all the Crimson Tide fans out there, their faces. But I wonder, and I'm not calling him a liar here or anything, but I wonder if this has anything to do with Arch Manning. His recruitment, of course, coming up. Alabama's right in the thick of it, and he can't have any kind of lingering doubt that he's not going to be there for the 4 years or 3 years or however long Arch Manning's in college. Can't have it out there that he's got 1 foot out the door when you've got such an elite quarterback considering your program. So, hey, I'm just throwing it out there. But could Arch Manning be the final quarterback of the Nick Saban era? I think some people think Bryce Young may be that guy. There's been speculation. I think it was even Paul Feinbaum himself said, if Alabama would have won that last game, there was rumblings that Saban was going to hang him up. So we'll see. These comments seem to contradict that, but who knows? I just thought, any kind of update on Nick Saban potentially retiring, I got to bring it to the rest of the SEC. All right, but jumping down to Baton Rouge, like I said, the defensive staff met with the media for the first time since being hired. Brian Kelly's debut staff put together, and he's put together one hell of a staff here. And it's, the main one here, Matt House, the defensive coordinator, after 3 seasons with the Kansas City Chiefs, won a Super Bowl, made another one, and before that, of course, he was Kentucky's defensive coordinator. If you missed it, go back and on the last episode, we had Sean Smith of the Kentucky Daily podcast on the line. I asked him about Matt House, what LSU fans can expect from him. He sounded pretty optimistic that LSU got them a good one in Matt House. So before we get to Brian Kelly, before we get to Matt House, defensive line coach Jamar Cain, who he's been all over the map, hired from Southern Cal. He was their defensive line coach. He's been at North Dakota State, which I know is a lower level, but they're national championship after national championship at the lower levels. And he's even got a story about Joe Burrow, babysitting Joe Burrow to be in fact, because he coached with Joe Burrow's dad. I thought this was fantastic. And then SEC fans across the board, I thought, would really appreciate these comments. Even being at a place like Southern Cal, being at, he's coached at Oklahoma, you get in these battles on the recruiting trail, and at the end of the day, a lot of these elite players, they want to play in the SEC, and that's something that has come back to bite Jamar Cain in the ass, and a big reason why he's in LSU now, because he does not want to lose another recruiting battle due to the fact that he's not recruiting for an SEC program.
The talent, though, that the South always tends to have in Louisiana per capita, it's a different type of dude because of the heat, because of the humidity. Yeah. On the defensive line, you can really get some beasts. I'm sure you're excited about recruiting.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Just I've hung my hat on being a good coach and a detailed recruiter, and recruiting a lot of good players, Oklahoma and other places I've been. It's always been a recurring theme. Was like, a coach, I love you, I want to come play for you, but I want to play in the SEC. Specifically, I want to play in the SEC West, and that kind of hurts your heart when you spend 2 years recruiting a kid, and it comes down to when it comes down to making a decision. And they're like, don't you guys put that one out.
It's not alive, thank you.
Yeah. But when it comes to making a decision, in that case says, Coach, I want to play in the SEC. And, I'm excited about coming down here and recruiting some of these athletes, especially the state of Louisiana. There's always been good players here, especially defensive linemen. And, working from outside the state, there's always been known that, hey, you can't go into Louisiana and take a defensive line. Like, that kid's going to LSU. When I was at Arizona State with Kevin Moai, and Kevin would always tell us, like, hey, you can't go down there. Burrow's a good player. No, you can't go down there, guys. Don't worry about it. He's going to LSU. So I'm excited about that, especially opening up these doors down here.
So you're trying to figure out how to get around Baton Rouge, but you certainly know the LSU brand, some of the players that have made it to the league.
Yes.
Maybe that you tried to recruit.
Yeah.
Was that part of deciding to come here? And what guys do you think of when you think of that?
Well, you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but I GA'd at Ohio University, and the D coordinator was Jimmy Burrow. So when I got this job here, Jimmy called me and laid out everything for me. And then obviously I followed LSU because Joey was here. I babysit Joey when I was a GA, so that's just a fun fact so you guys can have. Like, I was Joey's babysitter, and I used to sit. I'm just gonna tell you guys a little story. I used to sit as a GA. I would break down the film, and Joey would be playing his Pop Warner game in Peden Stadium, and Coach would make me film it. So I had to go out there and film it as I'm breaking the game down. And I had to make a highlight film of all Joey's plays and everything, and then give it to Coach because he couldn't watch the game. Then I had to make a Christmas highlight for the whole family. So it's just, anyways, I can go all day about this stuff.
Could you slip those to us, please?
Oh my God, I wish I still had them. I was like a 24-year-old kid trying to like break this game down so Coach Burrow wouldn't yell at me. But I got to make Joey's highlight. It was just a crazy time. But anyways, Coach Burrow called me and gave me the whole rundown. Then I got Kevin Mawai calling me and sending me houses and where to live and go eat here. Then when you get boudin, dip it in this. I'm just like, Kevin, man, I can't eat all that. Like, I'm old. I'm gonna get heartburn. Like, I'm already on blood pressure medicine. Like, there's stuff I can't do around here. I'm from California. I want salad, you know. So, anyways, yeah, I want all the avocado stuff. But no, it's been fun. And
All right, so hey, how great was that Joe Burrow story? Joey Burrow, as he calls him. I just thought that was fantastic. You know, Joe Burrow's dad. Certainly, you've seen him. He was at all the LSU games. He's at all the Bengals games. He still does media down there in Baton Rouge. They really love this LSU program. So it's great to see that Burrow, not only Joe Burrow, but his entire family still embraces, still proud Tigers here. And now they've got another strong connection to it with Jamar Cain down there coaching the defense of line in Baton Rouge. You know, of course, the guy that hired Jamar Cain and Matt House, Brian Kelly, he also met with the media here very briefly here on Wednesday. He's going to meet with them again on Thursday, I believe, to talk about the offensive staff. But key comments here from Brian Kelly, why he wanted to bring on Matt House and the defensive scheme. Still up in the air what they're going to be running next season in Baton Rouge. I love the fact that Brian Kelly addresses the defense in terms of an offensive-minded guy on what he's looking for from a defense, from an offensive perspective. I just thought those were some pretty solid comments here.
I'll start with our defensive coordinator, Matt House. You know, what really drew me to Matt was coordinator experience. You know, here's a man who has multiple coordinator roles at three different schools in particular, but more importantly in the SEC, you know, and having experience in the SEC as a coordinator was certainly something that I was looking for. You know, Matt's coached all the positions as well, and as a former defensive coach myself and a Division II head coach, I can appreciate somebody that's had to coach all those positions. Because I've had to have that on my agenda as well. So he's coached the positions. He can fix the defense if it needs to get fixed, which it's never going to need to get fixed, right, man? We know that already. And he's won at the highest level. He's won a Super Bowl. So he's a winning football coach and a great teacher, great communicator. And so that's what really drew me to Matt.
You mentioned wanting multiplicity on defense. What other sort of qualities are you wanting to see on your defense in terms of scheme and what that might look like?
Yeah, I think, you know, from a defensive standpoint, you know, I think offensive, you know, minded coaches would all tell you that if you line up one way, you know, you're going to have a long day. And so, you know, we're going to defensively be able to give you multiple looks. You know, obviously, you know, try to keep the personnel as constant as possible, and make it difficult, you know, for offenses to know what they're going to get from down to down, and that's really the game today, right? You know, if you're you know, constantly, you know, moving personnel in and out of the game, multiple packages, makes it a little bit more of a game for the offense because they can change tempo on you. So, you know, we're going to, you know, try to have the pen last in a lot of those situations.
All right, and then the coach that really revealed the most, I thought, here on Wednesday was Matt House, new defensive coordinator down there. So much hype with LSU's new defensive coordinator after being with the Kansas City Chiefs, like I said, for 3 seasons, 2 Super Bowl appearances, And the only other time they didn't go to the Super Bowl, they went to the AFC Championship. So, it's amazing being in Kansas City at this time. What brings Matt House back to the college game, considering it seems like every one of these damn assistants in college football, when they get an NFL opportunity, they're jumping. They're going as quick as they can. So why is Matt House going the opposite direction? That was the first thing asked of LSU's new defensive coordinator on Wednesday.
Yeah, I suppose if you could just walk us through the last few years for you as you chose to go to the NFL as a linebackers coach, and now what brought you back to want to be a coordinator in college again?
Well, several things. First of all, when you leave coordinating, you always have that hunger to get back and do it. I enjoy the part of the game that the scheme part, the building of a team, the building of a staff. I enjoy when you lock arms and get in the room together and you can put together a plan. And I enjoy the development piece. It was fun the 3 years in Kansas City to go back and work with Spags and to learn from Coach Reed, and obviously, winning at a high level. But at the end of the day, there was a hunger to come back and to be a defensive coordinator. And I missed the part of the relationships with the players. I had a great linebacker room in Kansas City, great guys. Okay, but one of the things that I did miss, I have 4 kids of my own, and I missed the opportunity for my kids to get to know the people that I was spending time with outside. And coming back to college affords you to do that.
So what does a coach learn in the NFL? I love this comment because, he makes a great point. I do think, I say it all the time, the players matter more than just about anything, but being at the NFL level, Matt House is well aware. It's obviously a little bit different story there, but talent will only get you so far because in the NFL, everybody's got talent. And in the SEC, the upper echelon teams, all those teams are going to have talent. So what separates you? That's something that Matt House also tackled here.
You mentioned your last stop. Just, I guess, talk about maybe what you learned the last couple of years about building a championship-level defense and obviously winning the Super Bowl and all that.
Number one thing is, talent will get you so far. I mean, you look at winning at that level, the locker room, okay, the leaders within each position group, the standard, the consistency that it takes to win day in and day out. Those are the things when you win at that level that kind of come through, because everybody's got a certain level of talent. It's the teams that bond together, all right, and play to a standard that win.
And one more thing when it comes to defensive scheme, kind of like Brian Kelly was indicating, I love this answer from Matt House when he was asked about what scheme he plans to run at LSU, because I cannot tell you, these guys that make so much money, they think they have it all figured out, and many of them are hard-headed. They think that I got here because of my scheme, because of my X's and O's. We've seen it time and time again. These coaches that think that way, that won't adapt, and it's far more, many won't adapt, while the elite ones, just look at Nick Saban. We just talked about him. Look at his program offensively the last 5-6 years, how he's adapted to the rules and getting elite quarterbacks and elite receivers. You have to be willing to adapt with the times. You just cannot suffocate your players with scheme. You really have to scheme to what your players' strengths are and avoid their weaknesses, and that's exactly what Matt House plans to do with his defense here in Baton Rouge.
You mentioned the multiplicity on defense and the different things you want to do. Have you decided, from a base standpoint, what you all want to scheme out of yet?
That's a great question, but we're still learning our guys. And until you can learn your guys, I mean, football 101 is, right, accentuate the positive and try to keep them out of negative situations. As coaches and as a coaching staff, we got the experience and the versatility to put them in good situations. But there's a process of learning what your guys can do and what they can't do before you can execute that. And that's the process of going through this winter, going through spring ball. It's a process, and we'll kind of metamorphose into what we can become.
Now, final thing, I thought LSU fans would really appreciate this, just the fact that I think these are kind of common comments that a coach will make when they get hired, but I think it's certainly true. I think he's speaking the truth here, given some of the players that he's interacted with during his NFL time, but just how passionate them LSU Tigers are, even when they move on to the NFL. I mean, they are just diehard LSU fans at the next level.
Yeah, right here, Ron Higgins, Tiger Details. Did any of the LSU guys on the Chiefs talk to you about LSU, Tyrann or Daryl or Clyde, the advice they give you?
I'm going to tell you what, this is, of any place I've been, this is the most passionate former players I've ever seen, okay? Whether it was Clyde, whether it was T5, I mean, those guys love this university, love this state, and want to do anything they can to help it be successful. And that's pretty neat. It's neat to be a part of.
All right, so hey, like I said, this is going to be a shorter episode. Just had these clips from the LSU new coaches staff, so look forward on the next episode. We're going to have the offensive coaches. Really interested to hear from the offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock. Not a guy I'm familiar with, so it'll be new to me as well. And then, like I said, we got a great guest lined up to finish out the week. First-time guest, never had him on the show. I think the listeners are really, really going to appreciate who we got to close out the week. But, hey, that's going to do it for this episode of the show. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.